Good evening and welcome. I trust that all are well. I trust that everybody's well. So, good evening. Good evening, Louise, Victoria. I trust all is well, and we are in Friday night. What better a night to be sitting doing step work than on a Friday night? So welcome to everyone, and hi cousin Heather, my wee cousin down in York. I'm glad you're joining us. I'm glad to hear you're getting a lot out of it. That's amazing. So I'm really pleased. So I'm curious how everyone's week's been going and how everyone's managing these unprecedented times that we are in. So thank you very much for everyone who is joining, and we are on my brain step 9 and step 10. So step 9 is where we have made direct amends with whoever possible, except when to do so would injure or cause harm. Okay, so it's a confession step. It's about confessing our wrongs, and when we confess our wrongs, it's never easy. It's never an easy step, confessing our wrongdoings. So we start to look at step 9, and confessing our wrongs is an easy step. And when we are confessing our wrongs, at some level, the confession draws us to acceptance. Step 4, a fearless moral inventory of ourselves, a confession of character flaws. Step 5, a confession of our wrongs to God and another person. Step 8 sets us up to the head dive that we need to take in order to get into step 9, because it really is a huge head dive getting into step 9. This step that would logically appear difficult, and the resistance around step 9 can be very strong for most of us, but it's great medicine for our spirit and for our soul. Hi Glenn, hi Phyllis. So the spiritual principle involved is that of forgiveness, not only from others, but a forgiveness of ourself, which brings healing to both parties. And when it's felt on both sides, when we can apologise from a centred place within ourselves, and it's received by the person to whom you're apologising to. Evening Ross, hi Glenn. And when our apology can come from the right place and it can be felt on both sides, it has the power to break down the entanglement that we're in. Entanglements can be so cumbersome things that impede our growth. There isn't enough room for us to grow in an entanglement because space is never planned into them. The guilt that we have unconsciously buried for the wrong that we have done is constricting us. When we've locked the guilt of our wrongdoing in the room with probably hundreds of other shameful behaviours that we've done, and that is causing a disconnection to the self, because what we do is we do something bad. We might steal somebody's car or rip somebody off or do something bad, and we know we're doing it, and we know it's manipulative. Hi Hilary. And we know it's manipulative, and if we were a centred spiritual being, we couldn't live with that. So what we do is we bury that. Danny McNair, Big Ross, Nice to see you, Danny. Lovely. That's nice that you're in. That's nice. Nice to see you. And what we do is we do something wrong, and what we do is we put that wrong a lot in a room with a whole other load of wrongs. So that's why we cannot be connected and carry the guilt and the shame for the wrongs that we have done to another person. So we have to then disconnect. So it causes a disconnection to the self. So for an example, if you see someone in the street that you've harmed, you would cross the road, dive into a shop, put your hood up, you would do everything in your power. You would even wish you were on the Starship Enterprise and could hit a cloaking device and just disappear, okay? This is a sure way that we're entangled. So if we experience any of those kind of behaviours that we're doing, that's a sure way to know that we're entangled. So you can look that stuff up. It's got to do with quantum entanglement theory and all that kind of stuff. And this is this step's a great step for releasing us from any entanglements that we have with other people. Now, a lot of Christians, but not all of them, but a lot of them think that if they have made their repentance to God, that's enough. And they've asked God for their forgiveness. So, I stole somebody's car. So, wait a minute. Do you feel bad for calling me a selfish bitch? Absolutely not. Not at all. Because you are. Even writing that on a social media forum and asking that question, I think most people would agree is quite a selfish act, because did you ask anybody else if it was okay for you to write that question? No. So a lot of Christians, but not all, think that if they have made their repentance to God, that's enough. So I stole somebody's car, well, I stole Ian's car, and I go away and I take that into church and I ask for forgiveness in that. That's great. And I'm 100% sure that your higher power would forgive you for that, okay? And I also believe that you would feel slightly better. But see the person that's car gets stolen. Do you think that they've let you off the hook? You know, they've got every right to be angry and may still be harbouring a lot of negative feelings towards you. I mean, no one likes to admit when we're wrong, but it's all part of the cleansing process. People should try and confess sins as soon as we recognise them, but sometimes it takes a long, long while. We should also try to... How do you cope or deal when you admit you do wrong? Louise, that's great. And there's Claire again coming back. You really hurt me. Great. Now, if you feel that that's something that you would like to discuss, then please private message me. But I'm going to ask you once more, please don't do that in a public forum, because that's... I'm not even going to say what it is. Claire. So either private message me if that's the way that you're going to behave, or I'll take 2 seconds and I'll pause this and I'll go and block you, because I've not really got any time for that right now, because it's not all about you. In fact, this has got nothing to do with you. Sorry for you to hear that, but Claire, this has got absolutely nothing to do with you. And if you want that level of stage show and being on the stage and having this audience, then great. But I'm not buying into it. So I've said my piece in that. I'd like to answer Louise's question, but I'm just going to get through this, Louise, and then I'll 100% come back to it. Okay, so it's really hard to confess our sins, and as soon as we recognise them, but sometimes it takes a while for us to really recognise what we've done that's wrong. We should also try to apologise as soon as possible to others, though it doesn't mean swallowing pride and letting go of fear. People are responsible to one another and indeed to their higher power, and must live up to that responsibility. Also, the sooner that you confess your sins and your wrongdoings, the sooner you can move on from it, right? Because it's a weight around your neck. You know you've done wrong, you know you've hurt somebody, and it's a weight around your neck. The sooner that you can confess that, the sooner you can move on from it. But as I've said in previous videos, all slaves want freedom, but when the slave gets it, he doesn't know what to do with it. And we're very much like that. It's similar here. I think that we are brilliant, just what I needed. Cheers, Linda. Nice to see you. What was I talking about there? So it's similar here. We are, if we're truly in following the steps, if we have committed to truly follow the steps and do step work, right? Now, there's many ways that we can do things. As I said earlier on this morning, there's many roads to Rome. But if you're really committed to doing your step work and you're following the steps here, you're making a contract. You're getting into a contract with your higher power, and you're getting into a contract with ourselves, and we're entering into a relationship with Mother Earth. Because when we start to do this work, we can't treat ourselves and our space round about us the way that we have, because it's not just here for our self-indulgence. So the question you need to ask yourself is, are you ready to be free? Are you ready for newfound energy and a love for yourself you haven't experienced in a long time? Then this is where it all begins to unfold. By not doing so, we are not fully owning our wrongdoings and the insidious nature of our disease of alcoholism or substance misuse. In fact, I would go as far to say that the disease that we have is not only alcohol and substance, but the addiction that we have to this systemic type of system that we inhabit, which is currently a capitalist system and a structure which I don't think is helpful for humanity and certainly not helpful to move forward. So unless you're ready to accept the wrongdoings that you've done and get away, I'm ready, Ross. Good on you, right? So the insidiousness and the nature of our disease, by not following through this step, you're somehow very vulnerable. You're very vulnerable if you don't see step 9 through to the same wrongdoings, because if you don't see step 9 through, the same wrongdoings can happen again, which will inevitably cause guilt and shame, which could be a major trigger for relapse. We want to continually focus on keeping our side of the street clean. Sometimes the injured party is not willing to forgive and forget. Whether they are or they are not, our spiritual progress depends on doing the right thing and making direct amends. A genuine apology, when offered and accepted, is one of the most profound interactions of civilized people. It has the power to restore damaged relationships, whether that be on a small scale between two people, or also on a grand scale between groups of people, even nations. If done correctly, an apology with real humiliation real humility can heal humiliation, and it starts to generate forgiveness. There is so much in the Bible about step 9. A massive amount of stuff in the Bible about step 9. Now, for those that are just joining, they may not have heard me saying it before, but when I talk about the Bible, I'm not coming at it like a preacher that stood in Buchanan Street with it in his hand, saying the end is near. The Bible's a book to me. It's a fabulous book. It could be a fabulous book of fiction. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm not here to turn around and say that I think I know what it is, because I don't. But like many of the books that I have in my library, they have strung a chord with me at some level. So that's why I got them. And the Bible, whether it's the hand of God or not, I'm not here to debate that. So a lot of people that have just joined, and then they hear me say the Bible, please don't disappear because you think I'm going into some religious slant. I'm not. It's just a phenomenal book, and I think in the world of personal development, it was the original personal development book, and for that reason, I totally respect it. I have respect for the Bible. So there's a lot in the Bible about step 9. My favourite passage in the Bible about step 9 would be Matthew 5. See my brain? Matthew 5, 23, 24. So if you want to look that up later on, Matthew 5, 23, 24. And I hope there's no any religious scholars watching because I probably got it wrong. And Matthew 5 says, quite simply, if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you in that temple, leave your sacrifice at the altar and go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. Because if you're going towards, I think what that's basically saying for me is that we're in a spiritual program. We're in a program of spiritual and personal development. We're in recovery. We're working the 12 steps, right? So in that, our higher power. So if we're talking to our higher power, right, and we've got, oh goodness, how can I try and explain this? We're looking to have a connection with our higher power, right? So we want a good signal. We want to have full bars, okay? So when we're communicating with our higher power, and there's many contributing aspects that can come between ourselves and that connection, okay? So if you have got issue with someone, and in that passage of Matthew 5, it is saying if you see someone in that church, if you like, or in that place that has issue with you, go first forward and be reconciled with that person before you go and sit at the altar. Because what that's going to do is it's going to make your peace and your serenity better, which would undoubtedly give you a better connection to yourself to receive better benefits from the work that you're doing. I think I've explained that right, but I'm not completely sure. So step 9, David Harvey's just joined, but we're well into step 9. We're probably about, goodness, we're about 20 minutes into step 9, David, so you're not catching a great deal of this. So step 9 seems to be a lot about making amends with others. It is generally us that's amended. So when we ask for forgiveness, we get forgiveness. When we give, we receive. So it sounds as if it's a lot about going around and asking folk that you've hurt for an apology, but really it's not, for me it's let's put the cart before the horse. It's not as simple as that we are going along and we're asking someone that we've caused harm to, been cheeky to, been aggressive to, been violent to, bullied, hurt, didn't treat effectively or appropriately because we didn't have the capacity to do so at that time. So it's a lot about making amends to other, but it's actually we to whom we're being amended. Now, Bill Wilson was one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Bill Wilson made a quote, and it's, you can't think your way into acting better, but you can act your way into thinking better. The community of recovery in the 12 steps, it's a community of like-minded people on the same path, and like ourselves, been following the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, and they, like you, have a relentless desire to break free from the previous confinement and flash that away, previous confinement, and share the desire to be a different person. under the guidance of a sponsor and the shared experiences of others, it is possible to grow beyond your wild expectations through the steps. Step 9 will be the final push we need before we can begin to focus primarily on the maintenance. The maintenance that we have to, the daily maintenance that we have to do. The recovery starts when you get out of your bed in the morning, and tidy house, tidy mind. Now, step 10, and I know we're speed dating. The steps, but Lynn Stoneman, I'd apologise to myself to begin with. I absolutely really value people that's writing stuff up. Please keep doing that. I absolutely do. And hi Sarah. And what I'll do is I see you popping in, but I'm a self-confessed ADHD type person. My brain thinks really, really fast. So and when I get into something that seems quite simple to me, which is actually really complex to other people, I start speaking really, really fast, and lots of people can't understand me. The hardest thing for me about doing this set of videos is actually just slowing down a bit. So please keep writing the stuff. And when I get to the end, it's not that I'm not looking at you and I'm being dismissive. I'm absolutely not. It's great. Keeps me going to see that you're coming in. However, I'll answer the stuff at the end. So step 10 is about keeping a personal inventory. And when we wrong, we admit it. I call step 10 the ego slayer. If you got in touch with yourself in step 4, this will have paved the way for step 10. If you're stuck at step 10, go back and do step 4, right? And go back and do step 4 with a better attitude, okay? So step 10, keeping a personal inventory. And when we've done wrong, we very quickly admitted it. As I said, I call this step 10's the ego slayer. It's just the one that just carves up the ego. And if you got in touch with yourself really, really well, and you did a really good job on step 4, this will totally and utterly have just broke through the icebergs and paved the way for your step 10, absolutely. And if you're completely resistant to step 10 or you're stuck at step 10 in any way, what I suggest you do is I suggest that you go back and with a better attitude and do step 4. And I'm actually repeated that because I know that a few of the guys that I've working the steps with and that are interested in the steps are watching just now, so that was me talking to you. Each step that we've done until now is chipping away at the ego's hold that it's had upon us, okay? But this just keeps hoovering away at the crumbs of our agonic and arrogant thinking, okay? It's just like it's a Dyson and it just keeps going in and hoovering up the little crumbs of our own arrogance and thinking, me wrong? I can't be wrong. You know, I'm never wrong. Me wrong? No, no me. I always, and then it's not just that you're wrong, it's that you can sit in your own arrogance and very, very cleverly find a way that the other person was wrong. Now, and it's the other person's fault, and we're great at that. We're absolutely fantastic at that. We've all got a PhD in being able to even finitely analyse the other person's behaviour to a T and say, look, that was because of them. Now as we're becoming through the work that we're doing in recovery and the steps that we're doing, and we're starting to become much more spiritually realised and using words like entanglement and projection and all that kind of jazz that we start to use, and we learn all these new fancy jargon words when we enter into recovery, and you know, we start a lot of us start using these words and we don't even know what they mean. And you know, best gift I was ever given when I walked into an AA meeting in 1993 was a dictionary, because when I went in there I could hardly absolutely relate to that. Louise, brilliant, right? So now that we're starting to become spiritually realised and fuller individuals in our recovery, and we're starting to use big words and everything like that, and we are starting to become Hillary says defo as well, but there's my ADHD getting me sidewind. Keep posting it up, and I'll just keep talking, and I'll come in and chat with you all a bit at the end, okay? So Now, as we're starting to become more spiritually and we're becoming aware, we're learning, and we now know that there are always blame on both parts. It always takes two to tango. That is completely sure, right? That's absolute. However, it is, somebody just phoned there, that's hilarious. However, it is for us to only see our faults and flaws and be accountable for that. This step is an emotional and spiritual housekeeping step. It's a step to review your day in your life. That's why, as part of the programme, it's recommended that we take time to reflect, and it's suggested to us that we look at more reflective practices like meditation, prayer, and walks in nature with no phone, and look at any kind of behaviour that's kind of quite reflective, quite feminine, allowing us to soften and go inside, and allow us just to take stock and go to our inner world and look around in the corners of our inner world and see if we're sticking to the path or not. Whether you consciously know it or not that you've done wrong, there's aspects of your mind do know that you've done wrong, and this is boiling the pot, which can fester under the surface, and it's not helpful for our recovery. So on a positive note, it's also helpful to reflect on the love, and it's helpful to reflect in the moments of joy that's in our life, and the love that's in our life, and the good that's in our life, and the people that's came to our aid and our assistance when we needed it, that were selfless, and then what we can do is when we can see that, when we can start to see the positive things, and then we go a little bit more inward. We're then able to look at picking up the gingerbread pieces, if you like the Hansel and Gretel trail that can take you home and arrive, and what got you to arrive at this place of joy, and then you can start learning how to forge new pathways, if you like, in order to get you to experience more joy and connection. Now, one of the worst hangovers that I have in sobriety now is anger. This is something that I really need to take care of really fast, and not to let it go on for days. In fact, I can't even allow it to be in my body for hours, because I'm pretty aware now. That's maybe that arrogant. I'm aware enough of myself. I'm not enlightened by any manner of means, but I'm aware enough of myself and how I feel inside my body, and how I treat myself now. Anger is definitely not a poison that I choose to drink. I may have a smaller life because of this, like the circle of my life became a lot smaller, and we could sit and dissect that to turn around and say that that's a form of control in my space, but people, places and things that don't encroach in the people, places and things that encroach in my serenity is just a big no-no. Anybody, folk that come in and just really not thought of, it's like, I'm not doing that. It's like, really, I don't need to get involved with you. I absolutely do not need to get involved with your nonsense. Take it somewhere else, and deal with it in a more effective way with you. And the truth, I guess, is that I'm only ever angry at myself. Something happened recently. There's a guy I know, an older guy, and I know that he likes to have quite a bit of power. I know that he likes to have a little bit of control, and but he's also very kind, and I asked him for something a few days ago, and he never really come back to me, and then I kind of went back to him again. But I also gave him it was around a bit of property I was looking for somebody. And I said to him, oh, I hear that Scottish Land Registry's closed. But I was only really saying that as a way in, rather than just being direct. So I asked him the question, step one. I asked him the second time I went in, and when I looked at it, I was maybe being a wee bit kind of not straight. Dude, what's happening? Question I asked you on Monday. Are you in or are you not in? Are you in or are you out? End of. But I went, oh, a kind of an opening. Oh, I hear that Land Registry Scotland's closed. That must be causing some upset. And he went, yes, difficult times, and also to do with tenancies as well. And I was like that. I gave him that. And I sat and I was feeling angry towards him. But really it was myself I was angry at, right? And then I sat in it and I sat in it and I sat in it and I was like that. So I was ready to turn around and write him something else, but I went, I'd already asked him the question. The person wasn't looking for a 6 month or a year's tenancy. It was somebody that was known to both him and I. The person only needed maybe 2 or 3 months. The guy's got about 30 houses, you know, he's got about half a dozen that's lying empty. And I then went back and went, so do you want to do something without a tenancy agreement? Because there was never going to be a tenancy agreement. Never answered me back. And I then noticed I went into all kind of fantasies in my head, like, oh, when I pass him in the road, I'm not even going to wave at him. And I was a wee bitch. And I was like, I'm not even going to wave at him, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do this. And I think that probably lasted about a day. It was very, very subtle in comparison to, I didn't become obsessive around it. It wasn't going round and round in circles. But I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at me for asking him, because I absolutely 100% knew that that was the response that I was going to get, right? So, step 10. What else do we need to know about step 10? I guess I would trust those that are doing the work. I would trust at this point in the journey of self-discovery that we've came to realise that we need to do maintenance, and we've got to do this through our daily inventory in step 10, and also through the spiritual. I guess the maintenance is not just in step 10. We start to, you know, the steps fluidly dance together very, very well. And Sarah, I can relate. So, and we're going to discuss tomorrow step 11. So the maintenance that you do is now coming through. We will integrate the awareness of step 10, the spiritual awareness of step 11, and the love for others that it will be expressed through step 12. So that's part of maintenance, because we start to feel that. Who's asked me now? I don't get angry about anything anymore. I let it go. Despite I should have. Right? So we'll talk about that. And I really hope that this has been helpful. I think I've been on for just about half an hour. I'm trying to keep these blogs to half an hour, but as I said, I'm terrible. So I hope that you are starting to become as excited by the steps as I am, and that you can see how important they are as a group. And also, you can see how absolutely and utterly preposterous that it is that these new age coaches are dismissing the 12-step process and saying that they can take you on the 1-step process, right? Because that is utter nonsense. Now, I've been doing a lot of step 10 because I can be quite arrogant, and that's one of my character flaws, and I can have a lot of quite defensive thinking, and even when I say that, but that is utter nonsense, right? I think we've got to agree that the 12 steps are the 12 steps for a reason, and that the person that thinks they can do it in 1 step actually thinks that they are Jesus or something like that. And so if you hear anybody that thinks that they can take you on this 12-step process in 1 step, then my suggestion to you would be not to do that. So thank you very much for tuning in and listening tonight. Again, we will be on tomorrow night and we will be doing step 10, 11 and 12, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to take a little bit of time to answer some questions that are here, and I need to put on my glasses for that. And let me just see. Anybody get any really burning questions that we need to ask? Louise is watching, Victoria is watching, Max is watching. There's got to be an easier way for me to run this up without you seeing my finger. Glenn, Peter, evening Ross, good evening Glenn, Linda Stone, Hilary, hi Hilary, Mark Reed, hi Mark, Danny McNair for Curlook. Nice to see you, Danny. I don't know if you're still there. Des Beggs was watching. Caroline Hunter's watching. Rebecca, Danny. Hi, Danny. Now, Louise. No, sorry, Claire Louise Muir. Claire, your question was off. I'm sorry. And if you have came here only to have this forum for that, I'm not getting into it. I'm sorry, but you've got me in Messenger. You want to take it up, I'm more than happy to speak to you about it, but I'm not speaking to you about it here. Tony Grenfield, Louise, right, there's our Louise. Right, how do you cope or deal with when you admit and deal with your wrongdoings and you don't get forgiveness? That feels like a step back to me. Of course it does. Of course it does. But if your sponsor is on the ball enough and you, through the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, before you got here, we're starting to get a sense of your resilience, okay? Because I'm going to talk about energy and sound like a hippie, but just imagine, right, that everything's got a frequency. And let's imagine that depression is quite a low frequency. And let's imagine that joy and love is quite a high frequency, right? Let's just imagine that. Now, if you have got love and joy, what comes along with that is confidence and assurance and connection, right? And you get rejected, it's going to hurt. But you'll manage to pick yourself up from it quite easily and not brush it off, but look at it from a more pragmatic perspective and understand the other person's point of view, and also accept that you did what was right for you, which was to go towards it, face your fear and apologise, okay? If you're on a lower end of the energy spectrum, if you like, and you're feeling a little bit depressed and you walk towards somebody for an apology and the person doesn't accept it, that's absolutely going to feel like a step back. However, if you are on the lower energy spectrum of, let's just say, depression, then perhaps there's a neediness in us, a neediness that's actually apologising to the other person, because we've got an unconscious drive, we've got an unconscious need in order for that person, or a fantasy, or wishful thinking, that if they accept our apology, that's going to make us feel better. So really, we're apologising to make us feel better, right? Does that make sense? If that does make sense, Louise, could you give me a wee... Can you hit a wee thumbs up? I'll see that wee thumbs up coming up for the screen. If you're even still there. I don't even know if you're still there. You might watch this tomorrow. I don't know. Right, let me go up. Claire again. Stephen Snedden's watching. Stephen, my man. Linda, brilliant, just what I needed. Narelle Summers is watching. Jeanette, Walter Finlay is watching. Lindsay Ure is watching. Louise Mackay is watching. The Reverend, you watching? James Blackwood, Buddy James, Ray Langley, I read my dyslexia, Mags. I don't know if you're still there, Mags. I read that as it says I'm ready, boss, but I read that as I'm bored already, Ross. I was like, see how my brain works? See how our brains work? I'm reading Mag Langland's message and it says I'm ready, boss, and I read it as I'm bored already, Ross. I started freaking out inside. My brain, my whole internals just went, oh no. Right, bizarre. Colin Scott from Braidwood. Grew up with Colin. Used to play down the park. Then Louise says, and Claire says, sorry. Chris Morris. Stephen, the Bible is something and never finished. Kathy Wilson's watched. That's lovely. Kathy in Florida. Hope you're all doing well. Good book, and looking at it metaphorically, I'm glad you've picked up the Bible, Stephen. It is a really fantastic book. Certainly a wonderful, wonderful read. I love the Bible. I'm so glad I got introduced to that. Victoria, Harvey, Thomas, Sarah, and I think also just diddling a lot. Joanne. I've asked a friend of mine. He's in recovery as well, but he's a very educated man and a lot of fun. And him and I are going to one night next week. We're going to like get on the couch and talk about the coronavirus and all kinds of things like that. Right, Louise, absolutely relate to that. Neil Hose was watching. Elaine, Stephen. I don't think there's many people watching now. So resentment, right, Stephen. Resentment is the #1 offender in recovery for me anyway. And I like the way you explained by praying to get rid of the situation. Right, that's helpful. Georgina, Dutchie. Dutchie's my dualistic personality friend. Across the road. Hugh Gracie. Craig, I've not seen you for years, Hugh. And people can relate. Brilliant. Louise. Yes, self-fulfilling. Mags, chill. Any other questions? Anybody get any to ask before we go? And enjoy our Friday night. No? Well, it's been a pleasure again walking through some of the steps with you. Absolutely fantastic. And Linda Stoneman, brilliant. I'm going to log in tomorrow. Linda, darling, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Hugs. I'm wondering if you're up in Turriff or not. Louise Seater, thanks again. Louise, my darling, God bless you. I hope Orkney's well. The islands are good. And look forward to seeing you. Enjoy your night, Ross. Thanks. Aye, God bless. Before we go, let's do it together, shall we? Wherever we're sitting, right? Because I know a massive amount of the group, and I've prayed and walked and worked and cried and been lots of things with all of you. So shall we say the Serenity Prayer together? Because it's Friday night. Are you ready? Right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It works if you work it. It doesn't if you dinna. Right? Take it easy, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow night with step 11 and step 12. Step 12, my favourite. Get it on. Do it. God bless. Night, night.